Often, while writing shell scripts, you will find yourself using the same code in multiple locations. If it is just a small code snippet, it's usually not that big of a deal. So, however, rewriting large chunks of a code multiple times in your shell script can get tiring. So, the bash shell provides a way to help you out by supporting user defined functions. You can encapsulate your shell script code into a function and use it as many times as you want anywhere in your scripts. This complete slide walks you through the process of creating your own shell script functions and demonstrates how to use them in other shell script applications. So let's begin with creating a function first. So how do you create a function? There are two formats in Bash shell scripting. You can use to create functions in Bash shell scripts. The first format uses the keyword, basically a keyword function. So along with the function name, a keyword as a function. So this is our keyword. This is a function keyword. Along with the function name, here you have to write your function name. You assign to the block of code. So then inside that, so the name attribute, basically the name that you mention here, the name attribute defines a unique name assigned to the function. So because each function you define in your script must be assigned a unique name, and then you enter your commands inside the curly braces. The commands are one or more bash shell commands that make up your function. So when you call the function, the bash shell executes each of the commands in the order they appear in the function, so just as in normal script. So now the second format, but before we go for the second format, let's have a one exercise on creating a function and then calling a function. Before calling a function, I just want to show you uh, how to create a function. So when let's check. Yep, this is our first function. So bin bash using a function in a script. This is a first function. So function, creating a function with the first method. So here this is your function keyword, and the name of the function that I have mentioned is func1. Func1 is the name of the function, and inside that I just want to echo a simple statement that this is an example of a function, and then function is closed. Function is closed. This is what this part, the first module, is only about creating a function. So that's what we have seen so far there. So let me come down here. Yep. So now we have one more method basically to do that. The second format for defining a function in a bash shell script more closely follows how functions are defined in other programming languages, such as Python. So this is how, not exactly, but it's closer. It's closer. So you will give a function name and put parenthesis, and then whatever commands to be executed when you call that function. All commands should be placed in sequential order, one by one. Okay, so now let's look into a second kind of function creation, second type of function creation also. So when, yep, here it is. So second kind of function creation. So the name of the function, and then when I call this function, these are the commands to be executed. first one echoing a simple sentence, and then just taking up just listing out some information from some directory, who knows. Okay, so now we have seen different types of creating a function. But here, so once you have created the function, so after creating the function, if you think the matter there ends, no, not at all. So creating a function is one activity. So calling a function or return calling a function is another important activity. So normally we call it as a returning a value. So returning a value. So the bash shell creates functions like mini scripts complete with an exit status. So there are three different ways you can uh, generate an exit status for your functions. So the default exit status is, by default, the exit status of a function is the exit status returned by the last command in the function. So that's why it's very important point to be noted on the last command that you have mentioned in your function script, so that the exit status of that command will be considered as the default exit status of the function. So after the function executes, you use the standard dollar question mark that I have shown you in my previous sessions. You just go through it. So dollar question mark variable to determine the exit status of the function. So now the exit status of the function, one function is one, because the so if the last command in the function fails, we'll get exit status of 1, it is non-zero. If the last command of the function that you have mentioned, if it is successful, if it is successful, then we'll get the 0 exit status code. So that depends. But before we look into those things, first let us see the let's call the functions that we have created previously in both the ways. Okay, so let's get into the WSL one more time. So this time we will look into the function again. 14 0. Yep. So this is calling the function. So once creating the function. So once creating the function is done, now it's time to call the function. Okay, let's call the function. So calling the function is pretty simple. It's similar to other one. So I use a while loop here. While loop, count is 1 I have taken. If count is less than 5, so I'm going to get 5 iterations around. So 5 times it's going to call, and 5 times it's going to call the function. So that means 5 times it's going to print. This is an example of a function. Let's see, 5 times this loop is going to call the function. Not once, 5 times. Let's see. WQ chmod O plus X 14 0 done 14 0. Yes, see, I told you this is an example of a function. So creating a function is done, then it started calling the function. While it's calling the function, as we have used a loop, a while loop, so it has called the function 5 times, and after that this is the end of the loop. Then these are the normal. Once the loop ends, the whatever is there outside of that loop, and those also has been echoed. So now let's also call the other function, the function which is made with the parenthesis. Okay, so vim 14 1. So yep, here is the function which is made with the parenthesis. Rest all remains same. Rest all logic remains same. So now the creation is there on top, calling the function. But this time we'll just call the function only once without any while loop. So let's, and the exit status is what we are expecting here, because the last, we have two commands. The first command obviously we do not have any issue. It's a simple echoing a simple statement, whereas a second thing, LSL, and we gave a directory which doesn't exist. So obviously by default the functions exit status code would be the exit status code of the last command that is present inside these brackets, inside these curly braces. Okay, let's see. Anyway, let's see what's going to happen. Let's change mode for this also. Let's 14.1. Let's clear the screen, and then 14.1. Yes, here it is. So creating is done. Now while calling the function, so it's testing the function, so trying to display a non-existent file because there is no such file at all. So now we got an error. So ls cannot access bad file because there is no such file at all, no such file nor a directory. So the exit status code that we have asked, it is 2. And with this exercise, there are two things have been proven. One is the exit status code of the function is the exit status code of the last command that is mentioned in that curly braces, and second thing is that the symbol with the question mark, and then I'll just show it. The symbol with dollar and then question mark, if you give it, it will find out the exit status code in numbers, whether it is 0 or 1 or 2. Okay, so then, and finally what we'll do is we will also execute the other file that we haven't done. So one more exercise I have prepared for this, so that's vim 14 to function.sh. So here, so same thing, basically function, and then db1 is the name of the function. It's like a database for us. Then it's going to take the value from user, then it's going to double it up. Okay, so this is our function. So let's call the function. You just mention db1, that's it. That's more than enough to call that function. And let's check the new value here. Whenever you give a dollar and then question mark, it will find out that status code. It will find out that status code. Let's see. Chmod o plus x and then 14.2. Yeah, it's done. So let me clear the screen first, and then sorry, 14.2. Yes, so creating a function, while calling the function, the first activity I have to do is give a name. So I gave it. So what it said, it is red, but it's not a valid identifier. So finally what you got is an error token 2, but the new value is 1. So this is what the input it has taken. This is what the status code that we have got. Okay, so now let's move on to the using a function output, and more in detail, let's delve in detail about creating functions. So using function output, so just as you can create the output of a command to a shell variable, you can also basically capture the output of a function to the shell variable. So that's what a kind of redirection. So you can use this technique to retrieve any type of output from a function to assign to a variable. You can see that example here. So a cat test 5b, so function db1, this is the one which we have taken example. So result, so you can put the db1 or db1 result of the db whatever you can actually assign the result or the output of db1 to the variable result. So then you can call that new value as the result. So let's do the exercise of this, and then we'll come back. Let's make it smaller this time. Clear? So vim coding 3. Yep, here is the same one, function db1, and then enter a value. So once the value has been entered, so that value should be multiplied with this 2. So that's the creation part, and after that you call that function. So you call it, in spite of directly calling it, you assign the output of this function db1 to the result, and then you call the result with the new value. Okay, so let's get out of this and then change the mode, o plus x, and then 14 3. It's done. Let's clear it off and then now execute that file 14 3. Yes, so calling the function, so I'll give you some random number that's 150. So the new value is this. So basically it's unable to print the value. Okay, test a result and it's unable to print the value. So the new function that we have, the new function now uses an echo statement to display the result of the calculation. The script just captures the output of the DBL function instead of looking at the exit status for the answer. So now let's look into one more concept in the functions. It's passing parameters to a function. So when specifying the function in your script, you must provide the parameters on the same command line as the function like this. So you just look into this following command. So function 1, and then the value 1 is a variable, and 10 should be assigned as a parameter to that. So this function can then retrieve the parameter values using the parameter environment variables. So here is an example. The following is an example that you can see using this method to pass values to a function. So of course this is a big example. Let's directly get into the exercise and let's view that. So okay, clear it off everything. So vim and then 14 for functions.sh. So this is the big example. So this example is for passing parameters to a function. So creating a function is the first activity that we are going to do. So function, and then function name is add m. So we have a logic. If whatever information, whatever value that you give, if it is equal to 0 and or and greater than 2, then you echo 1. Elif, if it is equal to 1, then echo this $1 plus $1, and then else you echo $1 plus $2. So that's what the function that we have defined. So now let's call the function. In calling the function, we have a lot of conditions. If adding 10 and 15, add them. So basically here while calling the function, we are calling with different number of arguments. So first one is add m 10 15, so 2 argument. The second one is add m only 10, and then the third one just add m without values, and the fourth one is add m 10 15 20. So total 4 cases that we have used here, and let's see what could be the output. So chmod and then o plus x 44 and done. So let's 44. Yes, adding 10 and 15, it's 25. Let's try adding just one number, it's 20. So if you mention only one number, you'll get just 20. Now try adding no numbers, but still it's showing -1. Finally, try adding 3 numbers, still it's showing -1. So there's something wrong with the piece of code so that we have written. So those things can be changed, but however, in overall the function itself is working. So now, so let's go in depth into the functions. So here we are going to discuss discuss about the array variable. So we have discussed an advanced way of allowing a single variable to hold a multiple values by using arrays. This concept is called a single variable holding multiple values are called as arrays. So using array variable values with functions is a little tricky, and there are some special considerations should be taken while using array variable in functions. So that's the reason we are specifically discussing about this concept here. So this section basically describes a technique that allows you to do that. So the first one, passing arrays to functions. Let's look into that piece of code here. Okay, so the add array function iterates through the array values. So adding them together, you can put any number of values in the my array variable and then add array function that adds them. So this is the example that we have taken. Let's go to the let's go to the WSL, and we will execute one example. So vim 145, sorry, yeah, here it is. So using global variable to pass a value, so we will use a array. So function gb1 here is nothing much, so calling the function, yes, here we have a enter value. So the function is pretty simple function, and then the function name is db1, and what it has to do is, this is the value, so what it has to do is multiply the values that you give with the 2, so which is not how many we are going to give. So then finally after this we have to call the function. So to call the function, how are you calling? You have to attach a value as an input to your function. So read p enter a value. So once you get the value, so then you are calling db1. Now echo the new value as a value. So let's see. Let's execute the script, and 0 14 5, yeah, then 14 5. So while calling the function, it's asking for me for number. I have gave a number, error token is 2, so I'll give 5 5. So now the new value is something. So this is how it we have entered two values. Okay, sorry. So then returning array functions, that's we have already looked into it, but you can just have a theoretical part of it. So passing an array variable from a function back to the shell script uses a similar technique, but the function uses an echo statement to output the individual array values in the proper order, and the script must resemble them into a new array variable. So here if you see the script, this is another script. So the script passes the array value. The script passes the array value using the arg1 variable to the array dblr function. You say the db array dblr function. So the array dblr function resembles the array into a new array variable. So and it makes a copy for the output array variable. So it then iterates through the individual array variables, doubles each value and places it into the copy of the array variable in the function. So, and the most important thing is my array, or the array dblr function then uses the echo statement output So the echo statement output the individual values of the array variable values. So the script uses the output of the array dblr function to resemble a new array variable with the values. So let's get into the WSL and execute the exercise that we can do. So VM 14 and then 6, here it is. So here is the complete exercise that we have. So again the temp is smaller and then larger. Let me execute this, and then O plus X 14 6, here it is. So then 14, so you can see we have created the function that also printed and then calling the function. So the result is 22, so out of which the data that we have mentioned, out of the temp is smaller. So let's move ahead a bit. Function nodes, the most important function nodes. To efficiently and effectively handle the function, you need to know the following points, uh, so that I want you to let know. So just focus on each and every point. I'll just run through. So you can also pass arguments to a function, and all function parameters or arguments can be accessed via via a variable name preceded by a dollar symbol, either $1, $2, $3, and so on, $n. And $0 always point to the shell script name. So if you give dollar asterisk or dollar at the rate of, holds all parameters or arguments passed to the function. So dollar hash or dollar pound holds the number of positional parameters passed to the function. So array variable called func name contains its func name contains the names of all shell functions currently in the execution call stack. By default, all variables are global. So modifying a variable in a function changes it in the whole script. So you can create a local variable using the local command syntax. That's local var equals to value, or local var name, whatever the way. So you can basically create a local variable. So then before we go to the function uh, recursion, let me try to do one more exercise. Here vim 14 7 function.sh. So function tested, so local, this is what. So basically we have attached the keyword local in front of a new array variable. So then in spite of this become a global variable, it has become a local variable. So that's the reason I want to run this exercise. So then once the function tested has been created, then you can call that. So my array is this, and then echo the new original array is this. So when you mention this way, so you can all basically so normally my array takes 1 2 3. When you call that, it will give you only individual number, a single number, a single character from that array. So if you want to get all the characters or all the items of that array, so you have to give a square bracket. You have to give the name of that array and then square brackets and put asterisk at the center so that you can get all the arrays. So let's run it. Let's run it and see. Chmod O plus X 14 7 S, then 14 7. So you got this. Of course we got some syntax error here. There is some unbroken unexpected token also. So let me check that, but I think you got the important crux of the topic that we have been discussing so far. That is, if you use a local it's a local keyword in front of the variable, so it will become a local variable. So then we have a function, a recursion concept. So what is function a recursion? So one feature that local function variables provide is self-containment. A self-contained function does not use any resource outside of the function, so other than whatever variables the script passes to it in the command line. So the classic the the feature enables the function to be called recursively, which means that the function calls itself to reach an answer. So usually a recursive function has a base value that it eventually iterates down to. Many advanced mathematical algorithms use recursion to reduce a complex equation down one level repeatedly, so until they get to the level defined by the base value. So the classic example of a recursive algorithm is calculating the factorials. So a factorial of a number is the value of the preceding numbers multiplied with the numbers. So thus, to find out the factorial of 5, you would perform the following equation. You can see it on the screen. We have using the if then statement and then else, and then finally you have to basically give an input which number factorial you require. So using this factorial function is easy. So having created a function like this, you may want to use it in other scripts. So let's look into the script and then oh sorry let's look into the script and let's run it. Vim. So this is what that a factorial script. It starts with the if then statement, and then we have converted that into the local. The variable has become a local variable, even the result variable has become a local, and then finally the result has been multiplied with this variable $1, and finally we are calling it so result in factorial. Okay, we have to enter the value. 14 8 function.sh chmod. Okay,